All right, and our first guest of the evening, joining Trey and I here on the Fastest 40, is Matt Trigger, good friend of mine from the Charm City Heavyweights podcast. He is just one half of that podcast that they do over there in the Charm City. But Matt, dude, appreciate you jumping back on. We had you on a couple years ago, so it's awesome to get you back in here. It's been a while since the Chiefs and the Ravens have had an opportunity to butt heads a little bit. So this is exciting for me. I hope it is for you too.
It is, man. Thanks you guys for having me, Dan. It's always good to talk to you. Yeah, it's been since 2021 since our teams met, and no bigger stage for us to meet again.
Right?
This
No
is the
kidding.
pinnacle before the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely. We're knocking on the door of Super Bowl 58, just one win away for both of our teams. I know you're a very passionate fan. I know Trey and I both kind of embody that here in Kansas City too. I guess just to kick this thing off, we're going to fire some questions at you and get some feedback kind of on where your head's at going into this game. But first, I was curious, in the divisional round, you guys got to kind of chill back on Sunday, pressure-free football after getting the dub over the Texans. Who are you rooting for? Who are you wanting to host in Baltimore, Buffalo or Kansas City?
Full disclosure, I wanted you guys, and I'm not saying that because you guys are having me on your show. I fully believe that for Lamar to cement his legacy as a top-notch quarterback, he's got to go through Mahomes in the playoffs. Mahomes is the modern era Brady, by all accounts, for the most part, if you want to compare him to somebody. The Buffalo Bills didn't really worry me. I feel like they barely got out of the wild card round, and I want Mahomes. That's just who I want. If Lamar's going to go on and win a Super Bowl, I want him to have the type of trajectory similar to Flacco, because when Flacco won his Super Bowl 12 years ago, he had to go through Manning, Brady Andrew Luck. He had to go on the road for all those games, but I want Lamar. I don't want anybody making any excuses about Lamar.
Sure, yeah.
When he wins his Super Bowl, I want this to be as legitimate as possible for him, because the narrative is always going to change and the goalposts are always going to move no matter what happens. But I'd rather hear he beat Mahomes head to head instead of, oh, well, he didn't see Mahomes.
Yeah, that would for sure be an excuse if things didn't align. It'd be like, well, he didn't have to play Mahomes. So I definitely see your point there. So, with the first AFC championship in Baltimore, I mean, that's got to be a big deal for the city, right? And for their fans, teams, or for the team, fans across the country. But what does that mean for Baltimore? And we kind of spoke about it a little bit just a couple minutes before the show. Like, what's going into that for Baltimore?
They're going all out. This is the first AFC championship game being hosted in Baltimore since 1970, when the Colts were still here. And that's before my time, so I've never experienced. I've been fortunate enough to witness 2 Ravens Super Bowls, and we've gone on the road for majority of the games to get to that Super Bowl, to those Super Bowl titles. They're pulling out all the stops this weekend. They got there's this restaurant here in Baltimore County that's close to the city limits. It's called Jimmy's Famous Seafood, and they have this thing called the Tail Goat. And they have Shaq coming in to be a DJ. Ed Reed is his special guest DJ.
DJ Diesel.
DJ Diesel is going to be there. Michael Phelps is handing out the game ball. Ray Lewis and Ed Reed are the honorary captains. They're honoring John Ogden, Ed Reed, and Anquan Bolden. They're going to have, that's not including the fact that Taylor Swift is going to be in the city. Which I know, I'm pretty sure, even though you guys are diehard Chiefs fans, you guys are probably tired of that mess. Because I know I would be too, and that's empathy more than anything else. But it's electric, man. The only thing that's crazy is that a seat that's in the nosebleeds that normally goes for $85 is going for $850 right now.
Whoa. Damn.
So
I mean, it's
you
the
can't
first
touch
one in
a
Ravens
ticket.
history. I think
You
that
can't touch
kind of is parallel
after
to what. Yeah, that's parallel to what we saw when we hosted the first one ever at Arrowhead. Because when we last won our Super Bowl, the merger hadn't even occurred officially, and there wasn't an AFC championship game. There was an AFL championship game before you get to the Super Bowl. So for you guys, with the Colts being the last team to host that in Baltimore, that must have been one of the very first AFC conference games ever played in the NFL, if not maybe the
Yeah,
second one. So
yeah, and I understand that, and I haven't lost sight of that.
yeah,
The only thing that I kind of like get bummed about is that most of the time, not just the PSL owners are one thing, but now with it being so expensive, the average common football fan can't afford to go to the AFC Championship
yeah,
game. You're gonna have to kick out thousands of dollars before you even buy a beer if you want to
right.
go with more than one person.
Yeah.
Like there was seats going down by the end zone for $4,000 a piece. I mean, that's
Oh my
absurd.
gosh, that's
I
a
and
Super
and
Bowl
I and I
ticket.
understand it's to go and market. It's absurd though. I mean, it's a corner
It
end zone
is.
Yeah.
where the band is.
It's a band.
Yeah, right. Sit right behind the percussion section. No, I think that is tough for the common fan for sure. With us, I didn't go to that first AFC Championship game. I think at that time I was working for an arena soccer team here in Kansas City, so there's no way I could shell out $400 or $500 for that ticket. So I absolutely sympathize with that. But man, what an experience it'll be just to be in the city for that for you guys, just to be at, wherever your local watering
Absolutely.
hole is, where you catch the game. I think that's going to be awesome for you and everybody that, you rally around the Ravens with, which is pretty sweet. With that being said, the team, they've been on a very, very solid run this year, obviously. On the back end of that season, they've looked untouchable. Key wins against the Dolphins, against the Niners. I mean, they played a pretty difficult schedule, one where I'm not ashamed to admit I was hoping you guys would drop a few games. Unfortunately for us, we dropped a few, and it didn't even matter what you guys did in our chase to get the 1 seed. So you guys have been on a tear kind of to end the season, dominating win over the Texans this past Saturday. What do you think has been the key? Because there's been a couple of injuries along the way too that you guys have had to overcome. Whether it's Mark Andrews or Keaton Mitchell, that other running back y'all had, or J.K. Dobbins, like those are some big key injuries on the offensive side of the ball. So what do you think has been the key for the success there?
To me, the key has been buying into this new offense.
Mm-hmm.
Todd Monken coming over here from Georgia and implementing
Yeah.
an offense. We started off slow. We were, the fans were kind of a little bit let down, myself included, when things just weren't clicking the first half of the year. And when you start stringing together some wins and you start, doing it impressively by way of blowouts, the first blowout being the Detroit game, and then following it up with the Seattle game, and then, like you said, the final stretch where we we went to war with the Rams. The Rams gave us hell.
Yeah.
We went on a punt return touchdown. I said it on my show, and I've said it on other shows when that came up. That's the defining win of this season for me. I don't care about the blowouts because the blowouts are fun. They're fun to watch, but
Mm-hmm.
that Rams game, if last year and prior, no matter how good or how bad the Ravens were, they lose that football game.
Mm-hmm.
Our we've historically never been able to close in the fourth quarter, and we did just that. It was in overtime, but we didn't do anything to shoot ourselves in the foot. That was the marquee win that showed the mettle of this team. And then you walk into San Francisco on Christmas night on national television on Monday Night Football, and you dominate from start to finish, and you could physically or visually see the will being taken from the 49ers, who everybody said was the juggernaut. And then the next week, we put up 56. We put up almost 60 points on the Dolphins, who put up 70 on the Broncos earlier in the year. So everybody's buying in. Odell Beckham Jr., everybody gave him a lot of crap for being a diva. And everybody said, "Oh, he's not going to fit in over here, or he's going to bitch about not being the main target." The guy had under 500 yards. He had 3 or 4 touchdowns. He had 37 catches. So to me, the fact that he hasn't said a word and he's been an encouraging teammate and he's been vital to the leadership of the wide receiver room that everybody else is under the age of 27. To me, if he can buy in, anybody can buy in. So they all bought into the Monken offense. Lamar made leaps and bounds in terms of his production and his consistency as a quarterback in the pocket. And we did all that without Mark Andrews for the second half of the year. And Isaiah likely stepped in. We lost J.K. in week 1. We lost Keaton Mitchell, when it got a little cold outside. And his dad, Anthony, who played on the Ravens 2000 team, he's a good friend of our show. And, I texted him immediately and I said, hey, prayers up to the young man, it's cool because ever since he went and had his surgery and started rehab, he's been at every game on the sideline cheering on his teammates, even with crutches. So
love that.
I love it. It's just been an overall buying into the system, and that's been the biggest difference as opposed to years prior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like that's something that's not really spoke about very often about, guys completely buying into what we're trying to do, especially like you said, where that offense was having troubles early on, and everybody eventually bought into that scheme and into a new OC and figured it out. So, if looking forward to the game this weekend against Kansas City, if you got to pick somebody from each side of the ball to be that guy, to be the X factor, to get you guys over the hump and back into the Super Bowl, who do you think that is?
The offensive pick is going to surprise you, so I'll save it for a second. But my defensive X factor, it's real easy to say Roquan Smith, but it's going to be Kyle Hamilton for me, because Kyle Hamilton, much like you guys know, Tyrann Mathieu was one of the first defensive players in this modern era to be a positionless player. You could put him anywhere in the secondary. He could be a box linebacker. He could play at the line of scrimmage. He can blitz. And we got Kyle Hamilton doing that now, except instead of him being an undersized safety, he's he's built like a linebacker. He runs like a cornerback, and he hits like a Mack truck. And I believe that's the X factor, because Travis Kelce is still one of the best tight ends in football. No matter if people say he had a down year by anybody's standards, he's still Travis Kelce. And he's still the benchmark for tight ends in football. I love Mark Andrews. He's top 3. It's them 2 and Kittle for me. Them 2 and Kittle. You can put any one of them at 1, 2, or 3, depending on who you talk to. But Hamilton has the ability to cover tight ends. He has the ability to play at the line of scrimmage. He plays very well in space. So I believe mitigating Kelce over the middle and making you guys beat us with your wide receivers as opposed to Kelce and then your wide receivers. If you can mitigate Kelce, it gives us a better chance. Rashee Rice is having a fantastic year. He's a great young wide receiver, but unlike our last matchup, there's no number 10. The number 10 is running hard for you. He's not flying down the field for you anymore. There's no Juju Smith-Schuster or this iteration of McCole Hardman is a little bit different than the one you had a year or 2 ago. So
just a little bit.
Who you telling?
So defensively for me, it's Kyle Hamilton, because he evens the playing field with Kelce. And I'm not saying he's going to shut Kelce down, because that would be incredibly stupid on my end to think that. But he levels that playing field.
Yeah,
and offensively, I think the X factor for the Ravens is going to be Gus Edwards. You guys have historically been a team that struggles against the run. You guys got pierced last week.
True.
Other than Chris Jones up front, I like George Karlaftis. He's a good player, but he's a little bit undersized for the offensive tackles that we have on this football team. And I'm just being objective, and I'm not saying he's a bad player by any means. He's a dog. He has a high motor.
He's a hustle
why you guys
dude.
took him.
Yeah,
he's a hustle dude. It's just that when he's 250, 260, Morgan Moses is 340 pounds. Ronnie Stanley's getting back to.
Isn't Morgan Moses like 6'8"?
Morgan Moses is like 6'6" and like 350, 340, and then so and he's having a good year. He's for his standards, he's having a very good year. Ronnie Stanley has gotten better every game the last month or two, and he looks healthy. He was throwing dudes around in the Texans game last week. He's actually been a better run blocker than a pass blocker, which is surprising. But the way that we can control this game is what we did last week: is run the ball. And Gus is a 6'2", 240-pound running back. He's not much smaller than Derrick Henry. And then you got Justice Hill, and Dalvin Cook had 30 yards on 4 carries last week. So to me, Gus is a guy that we lean on late in the game to wear anybody down. He falls forward and it's 3 yards, so I believe Gus is the X factor. I'm not saying he's going to run 20 carries, 150, 2 touchdowns, but he's one of those guys that can get 15 carries, 85 yards, give you a touchdown in the red zone, and
score in there.
Fourth quarter, you guys are sucking for air in the red zone, and he leans on guys, and our offensive line is built for that. So I think it's going to be Gus offensively. I didn't mean to make that a long answer. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Both those guys are great answers. I think they both have a very high chance to impact the game. Kyle Hamilton, I love that answer. He's obviously an all-pro guy now. Everything that he's been doing on that side of the ball is pretty fantastic. I think the Tyrann Mathieu comparison is damn near spot on. Last question, Matt, and we'll get you out of here. And you kind of touched on a little bit about the run game, but if the Ravens win, if the Chiefs win, we did want to kind of walk through that scenario. What do you predict would happen with either of those results, starting with if Ravens win, since you were kind of already alluding to that?
Whoever wins this game is going to win the Super Bowl. That's what the
color behind the Super Bowl logo is all about. It's purple and red because of the Chiefs and Ravens.
Yeah. I like that. I watch a lot of football besides my Baltimore Ravens. The 49ers, as much as everybody says that they're scary, we gave everybody the blueprint on Christmas night.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to see us again. If they want to see anybody, they want to see you guys, because they know that there's more of a bad blood because of you guys meeting in the Super Bowl previously.
Yeah, agreed.
But we embarrassed them, and I don't care what anybody says. We embarrassed them on Monday Night Football, and we made Purdy look average at best. 4 interceptions. He was out there running around looking crazy. He didn't know what to do. But whoever comes out of this game on Sunday is going to win the Super Bowl. Detroit looks good, but they also they're one of those teams that has to punch everybody in the mouth first. But if you punch them in the mouth before they get a chance to punch you, they revert to old tactics. And that's what we did when they came here earlier in the year.
Yeah.
First drive, we were physical. We just ran the ball down their throat and punched the ball into the end zone, and they never recovered. They were never even close to really going up on us score wise. And people can make any excuse that they want about their team with the Lions. They don't like being out physical, and both of our defenses are very physical. Both of our offenses are very physical running football teams. So whoever wins Sunday at 3:00 is going to be raising the Lombardi on the 11th. it's just a fact. They don't want to play physical football. Nobody can convince me otherwise. San Francisco is a finesse team. They're not a juggernaut. They're a finesse. They want to look pretty. They want to be this high-powered offense against shitty defenses. Excuse my language. But when the time comes where they got to play somebody that's got some moxie and a little bit of oomph behind them, they folded.
Some moxie.
A little bit.
Love it.
Detroit too. They don't want to get punched in the mouth, and Lord forbid if both of our teams have been playing in negative whatever temperatures the last couple of weeks. Don't put us in Vegas where it's 75 degrees, because everybody's going to get
Don't
loose.
get us in that weather controlled dome now. Come on.
Bingo.
Matt, man, I appreciate you a ton for coming and joining us tonight. Why don't you let everybody listening know where to find you on your socials and where to listen to the Charm City Heavyweights podcast?
Thanks, guys, for having me. It was great talking to you guys. Trey, it was great to get on screen and meet you. Dan, it's always a pleasure. We go back to the dysfunctional early days of Stadium Rant.
Yes, sir.
Or whatever they call themselves now. But you can find me at BWATB Podcast on Twitter and on Instagram. We run on the Drive to the Top Productions Network on YouTube. So you can find us on our YouTube channel over there. We do all Ravens. We do all Orioles in baseball season. We just did our Royal Rumble show for the WWE a couple nights ago, so you can catch us over there.
Hell yeah!
Thank you guys for letting me plug.
Of course.
Can't wait for Sunday, man. It's gonna be a ball.
It's gonna be a blast, man. It's gonna be a blast. Appreciate you taking the time out of your night, brother. Absolutely welcome anytime. Let's do this more often. All right.
Well, we're gonna be doing it a little bit, huh?
Yeah, right. A few more dances, I think, left in our future, brother.
Yes, sir.
All right, Matt. Cheers, brother.
Thank you.
All right, so our next guest here on the Fastest 40 is Cordell Woodland of the Winning Drive podcast and also covering Baltimore for 105.7 The Fan. Cordell, man, I appreciate you taking some time to join Trey and I here on the Fastest 40 here in Kansas City, man. I'm excited for this matchup. I'm pumped to see what it's going to look like for an AFC championship on the road. Trey and I have been fortunate enough to see the last 5 here in Kansas City. So it's going to be a little bit different, but at the same time, a big stage for these guys.
Yeah, man, you guys have been spoiled. I mean, 5 straight in Kansas City, 6 straight in general. And so what I do enjoy getting to see, great players like Patrick Mahomes, in a different element, him going to Buffalo, playing his first road playoff game. It was great to see. And all week I kept telling people, man, I think the Chiefs are going to win outright. And I think we're going to get a side of Mahomes we haven't seen. And look, he didn't have the best game of his life or anything like that, but definitely put on a good enough performance. And, for the Ravens, they've been great all year. I've been consistent in saying they've been the best team in football to this point in the year. So for them to see the Chiefs with an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl, I just don't think it's a better matchup you could ask for.
No, I totally agree with your take on the Ravens. There hasn't been a better team top to bottom in the league. I think the Niners maybe have an argument there a little bit if you're looking at just the rosters on paper and everything they've been able to produce from an accolade standpoint as well. But the Ravens, man, they've been the class of the AFC this year, just leading the pack from dang near start to finish. I did have a question because obviously you mentioned, the excitement of getting Mahomes in this matchup. Who were you rooting for in the divisional game with that pressure-free football? Were you wanting Josh Allen over Mahomes in Baltimore, or what was your thoughts there?
Well, I mean, I figured it'd be a good match. Look, you get to choose between Mahomes or Allen. I mean, you can't really go wrong in terms of still getting that premier quarterback matchup with Lamar versus either one of those guys. So I think fans were going to get treated to something good regardless. But me personally, I wanted to see the Chiefs come to Baltimore. I felt like, and Lamar said this the other day, and I've been saying it for a while now, like if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And the Ravens, I think that this is a long time coming, them being in this game. They've dealt with some injuries over the years. Is no excuse because everybody else is dealing with them as well. It's football. It's a part of the game. But when you lose your quarterback, and in this case, Lamar Jackson, like the Ravens have the back end of the last 2 years, I mean, it's tough to think of these guys doing anything. But when Lamar's been there, they've been one of the elite teams in the league every time. So it's good to see, this Ravens team being able to stay healthy enough to reach this point. And now you've got the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are a team that everybody has kind of looked for reasons all year to feel like the Chiefs just weren't going to still be in this spot. And yet here they are. So, they've just kind of been a thorn in the league side now for almost a decade. And I just think, for the type of year that the Ravens have had, it's fitting for them to have to, go through that, what I would call their biggest challenge to this point in the season, and going through Patrick Mahomes, whether he's at home or on the road, it doesn't matter. This is the AFC Championship game. It's tough to find any team that's more comfortable in this type of situation than Kansas City.
For sure. Yeah. And Cordell, I know you got your finger on the pulse there in Baltimore, with 105-7. So what's the vibe? I know Baltimore's excited, but how are fans feeling, walking into this game? Is there a little bit of fear of Mahomes, or is like, I want to kick this guy's ass? What's the vibe?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't sense any fear. If anything, I think if we're talking about the fans strictly, they're just sick of hearing Mahomes. I mean, I literally had a guy call into my show on Tuesday night. Like, I'm so sick of hearing Patrick Mahomes' name. This dude is not God. He's human. He can be beat. He bleeds just like everybody else. And I'm like, bro, I hear you. I mean, but look, it's the cream of the crop right now. You've got Lamar versus Patrick Mahomes. It's both of those guys. The NFL is a quarterback-driven league. So, as much as they don't like to pay quarterbacks, so they can kind of stretch it out when it's time to really pay these guys, they love to talk about them. They love to push them in our face. So I think for the Ravens fans, they're confident for sure. This team is having the year that fans thought that they would if they could stay healthy. So I think that they're just excited to finally see their team be able to stay healthy enough to be in the spot that they're in right now. And with the way that the Ravens have played this year, I mean, fans really are all but locking in their ticket to Vegas at this point.
I love to hear that.
Well, that's a good energy to have, man. Obviously, you want the city to be rallying behind the team in the biggest moment. You have that hint, and I think that's the difference between Baltimore and Buffalo. Just to be frank, I feel like a lot of their fans were nervous about what's happened to them the last couple seasons, whereas you guys, Baltimore's hungry, man. It's been that kind of a culture, I feel like, for as long as I can remember in Baltimore, where those fans are just, they have a little bit of an air about them, right? It's like we had that daunting defense throughout the early 2000s. We had all these Hall of Fame players in just a short existence when you think about relatively for the NFL's, length. So, more power to them for that, for sure. You mentioned the fans, they're a little tired to hear about Mahomes. Who are they more tired of hearing about, Mahomes or T Swift?
Oh my God. Yeah, it depends on who you ask. The football guys are probably more tired of hearing of Taylor Swift because they would rather probably, hear the actual football stuff. But the Swifties out here, they're probably like Mahomes who, they're all about the Taylor Swift coming to Baltimore. And it's a divide. You're going to have people that are either about the Taylor Swift stuff, and you're going to have people that really don't want to hear anything about her. It's kind of that cut and dry. But I think people, Baltimore is a city of it in its own. Like they are like they really embody this Baltimore versus the world type of mentality. So for them, they do like the fact that there's going to be a lot of stars in the building, Taylor Swift being one of them. Ray Lewis put out a video earlier today saying that, he's going to be at one of the tailgates, and DJ Diesel, aka Shaq, will be out at the tailgate as well. So they've got the Ravens have Ed and Ray being the legends of the game. They got T-Pain at halftime. They're pulling out all the stops for this game. So I think the fans, they do appreciate that, just to be able to see all these big names coming into the city.
Love that. Yeah, it's looking like a world tour over there with everybody jumping in on the festivities. With this being the first AFC Championship games the Ravens have hosted, and understanding the environment at M&T Bank Stadium and how rowdy it can get, what kind of advantage does that represent for Baltimore?
Well, I'm curious to find that out myself, because the Chiefs have shown themselves to be, especially like I said, with this type of game, it's almost like a regular week for them. This is their 6th straight AFC Championship game, albeit first one that they're going to, and at least for Mahomes, the first one he's going to have to go on the road for. So it will be a challenge. And I remember Mahomes talking about M&T being one of the toughest places he's had to play in his career, and going to the silent count and stuff like that. So, them going to Buffalo last week, I think helps prepare them for the atmosphere that they'll see in M&T. But make no mistake about it, the fans will be loud. I mean, they really had an impact, I think, on that game against the Texans. The Texans had like 5 or 6 false starts in the game. You could tell it got to a point to where they had to go to the silent count. And like Roquan Smith told us after the game, when teams have to go to the silent count and stuff like that, that's an advantage for the pass rushers, because now that snap count becomes a little more predictable. You don't want to do too many funky things pre-snap with the snap count, because then you'll have false starts and things like that happening. So the crowd has been great all year. To the Ravens, to these fans' credit, they have a lot of reasons to cheer, and the Ravens have given them a lot of reasons to be loud. I mean, they have been some quality teams coming in here. You think of the Lions, the Seahawks, the Rams, the Dolphins came in here, and man, I mean, they've gotten to see the Ravens really manhandle a lot of the elite teams in the league that have come to Baltimore. So as good as the product has been on the field, the fans have done their part as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited. I think I don't want the Chiefs fans to feel like they wasted everything going to Buffalo, first road game for Patrick Mahomes, obviously, when we have to step into another hostile environment again. So I want to keep that vibe going and understand that it's just another challenge. Buffalo was a challenge, but here we are, AFC Championship away. I mean, it's a big damn deal. So with that being said, first AFC Championship for Lamar. Right now, he's 2-3 in the playoffs. Do you think there's any kind of pressure there for Lamar to get over this hump?
It's funny because Lamar was asked that at his press conference on Wednesday, and he let it be known very quickly that he doesn't feel any pressure, any added pressure. Of course, it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to know what's really going on for him. But to his credit, I will say, Lamar has done a really good job of staying focused on the task at hand. He's been I've been joking with him like, man, you should coin the phrase locked in, because every time you talk to him, that's all he's talking about, how he's locked in to whatever the opponent is that week. And I think that serves him well in a game like this, where, he is only a game away from getting to the game that he so desperately wants to get to. And I think nerves will be natural. I think we saw some of those nerves at the start of the divisional game against the Texans. That first half was not the Ravens team that we've watched for the most part of this year. And that second half, where they outscored them 24-0 and put them away, you got to see, how dominant this team can be in such a quick span also. So for Lamar, I think, I do believe him when he says he doesn't feel any added pressure. At least, nothing that's going to influence him to where it impacts his play on the field. I think he naturally feels some pressure because of who he is and what's at stake in this game, and quite frankly, who he's going against in this game. But he does such a good job of kind of being where his feet are, and all he's got to do is go out there and be Lamar. He's so naturally gifted, and he's having such a great year. He's going to, in my opinion, go on to win his second MVP. I think as long as he stays, within himself, which is a wide range of what he's able to do. But I think as long as he, goes out there and bees himself, I honestly think he'll be fine.
Yeah, and just to build off of what you're saying too, I think it was Peter King who came on here at 610 with Carrington Harrison here in Kansas City and was talking about how Mahomes and Lamar have a lot in common in the way that they are locked in and the way that they are as competitors. And so I think with both of those energies that they're bringing onto the field in this AFC Championship game, I mean, that's going to just produce so many fireworks for football fans, for fans that are in the stands for that particular game. It's going to be, in my opinion, an all-time classic. With Mark Andrews, everything that's going on with him, with his injury going into this game, he's been practicing this week. Is there an expectation that he's going to be what he's been this whole season, or how much of that is going to, dictate Lamar's success in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. I'm anticipating Andrews playing in this game. I mean, he's now, going through Thursdays, like four straight full participation days in practice. And he's looked good. He's looked good. We saw him get back on the practice field about 2 weeks ago, and it was on a Friday. So you could tell they were easing him in, to the process. He wasn't doing much. Barely. I mean, I wouldn't even say he was running half speed, barely moving. He's going to about a 3-4 yard radius, running a very short route and just turning around, catching the ball. He went from that to the very next week. Now he's involved in individual drills. He's involved in the drills with the tight ends and the quarterbacks. And I mean, I'm watching him go up and make jumping catches and start to show some of that explosion that Mark Andrews shows on a regular basis. So I think he's going to play in this game. I don't know how much. I definitely think he'll be out there on pretty much every third down and every time they're in the red zone. And with as good as Isaiah Likely's been this year, if the Ravens can find a way to get something out of both of those guys when they're on the field together, I think that'll work. That'll be worth its weight in gold, to be honest, for them. But I don't know what type of Mark Andrews we're going to get. I mean, he is a dog. I'll say that his work ethic is crazy. It's crazy. As intense of a player as he is on game day, that's how he is all throughout the week. So it's hard for me to envision him. It's hard for me to envision what a shell of Mark Andrews looks like. I only know one version of him. And so in my mind, if he shows up and he plays, that's the version they're going to get. They're going to get the guy that's Lamar's go-to guy on every critical situation. And I think the rapport that Lamar has with him, it's so good that once Mark gets on the field, it'll be like he never left. I think Lamar will be able to find him easily. My concern is that with Mark Andrews returning, it may cause Lamar to start falling into some of his old ways and kind of locking in on Mark Andrews. While Andrews has been gone, not only has Likely stepped up, but a lot of these other guys have as well. Lamar's done a really good job of spreading the ball around. So hopefully with Mark returning, that won't stop, with still the idea of getting Mark involved.
Yeah, that was a thought of mine as well. How is he going to fit back into the scheme that they've built in the last couple of months without him? So that's going to be interesting to watch. And I think you're probably right on the third downs in the red zone. I mean, if I was a coach staff in Baltimore, that's where I'm focusing my effort for sure. That's where he's such a stud. But couple more minutes here before we let you get to the rest of your evening, man. One last question for you. The X factor, both sides of the ball, offense, defense. If there's somebody that's going to get it done for Baltimore to get over the hump, beat the Chiefs, and go to the Super Bowl, who is that for the Ravens?
X factor. The Ravens have quite a few, to be honest with you, that I could pick from, but I'll pick one from each side. On the offensive side, I'll say Justice Hill. Justice Hill has been really good for them. The Ravens lost 2 starting running backs this year. I mean, J.K. Dobbins goes down week 1, and then you have Keaton Mitchell, who goes down in the middle of the season. So they were missing kind of the lightning to their thunder. Gus Edwards has been kind of the brute. He's been the bruiser back all year. But they needed that quick guy, that big play guy, the speed guy out of the backfield, and Justice has been that for them. He's been efficient with his carries. He's great in pass protection, and he's given them something as a receiver out of the backfield as well. So he was really good for them in the win over the Texans. The Ravens had a lot of success on the ground. I mean, Lamar Jackson getting 100 yards on the ground himself, that helps. But Justice getting his career high in yardage in 66 yards, and I believe his career high in carries as well in the game. Also, he really turned out to be a huge difference maker for them down the stretch. On the defensive side of the ball, God, there's so many good players on that defense. Almost to like whoever I name, I don't even feel like they'll truly be an X factor. They'll just be like a stud. But I'm gonna have to say Kyle Hamilton. I mean, because I feel like he's like the ultimate X factor. He can do so many things. He's gonna be asked to do a lot of different things in this game on Sunday. You'll see him guarding Kelsey. You'll see him blitzing the quarterback. You'll see him stopping the run. You'll see him blowing up screens. You'll see him guarding slot receivers down the field. I mean, Kyle Hamilton literally does everything for this Ravens defense, and I think this is the type of matchup that the Ravens drafted him for, to go out there and go against a Travis Kelce, to be able to meet a Isaiah Pacheco in the open field and make that tackle that very few guys can do in the league when they find this guy one-on-one. So I think Kyle Hamilton is going to be super busy on Sunday because of not only just the things that the Ravens asked him to do, but the Chiefs and all of the pressure that they put on the defense. He'll be all over the field for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yep, that's the second mention of Kyle Hamilton on the show. I think that's fair to say that he is going to make a pretty big impact, and just the versatility there. Yeah. Our last guest compared him to Tyrann Mathieu and kind of the way that he was used in the Chiefs defense, that Swiss Army knife kind of guy, where he's jack of all trades and expected to do just about everything. Which we've seen L'Jarius Sneed do that a little bit for us, so we know the impact that can make, and definitely going to be watching for number 14 out there on Sunday for sure. Cordell, man, really appreciate you taking some time to join us tonight, and looking forward to this matchup. Why don't you let everybody know where they can find you on your socials and everything, and plug away.
Yeah, man, appreciate you guys having me. It should definitely be a good one on Sunday indeed. You can follow me on any social media at Cordell Woodland. Just as it sounds, you can catch my show, Shaking It Up Sports. I'm on evenings on 105.7 The Fan here in Baltimore. You can listen to that via the Audacy app. And you can also catch our podcast, our Audacy podcast, the Win and Drive podcast, me and my co-host Rita Hubbard, all things Ravens all year. So even once the season finishes, we'll be taking it all the way up to the draft season as well.
Nice.
Hell yeah, man. Nice. Cordell, appreciate you a ton, man. You're welcome on the show anytime.
Yeah, appreciate you guys, man. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Go Chiefs. All right, man. What a fun cast of guests we had here talking Ravens and all that good stuff. Before we wrap the show for today, for you guys listening on Red Friday, we do want to go through some best bets and kind of give you our take on the game as we kind of head into the AFC Championship game, the 6th straight, baby. We'll start with the best bets as always. 2nd straight week, Patrick Mahomes is a road dog in the playoffs. Baltimore favored in this game heavily. It opened at 3.5. Now it's at 4. Yep. All the money keeps going to Baltimore. All the sharps are on Baltimore to cover early, and now we're sitting here where Kansas City is +4. How in the world do you not take Mahomes as a road dog with his history and giving the guy 4 freaking points?
Yeah, I mean, what is he now? I think he's 9-1-1. Where he's a dog. After last week, he was 8-1-1. So, yeah, I mean, I love it at this point. It's hard to bet against him. And as a bunch of people have been talking, they just keep betting against him, and he just keeps showing up, man. So, I mean, I love it. I was shocked too. We were talking earlier in the week how I was really thinking this was going to go back down to like a 1.5 or 2, but it went the other way. And so I like the Chiefs +4 at this point. That's a no-brainer for me.
Oh yeah, you gotta love that. You gotta love that part of it. I think with just everything we've seen from Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, the way he performs, what he's able to get his teammates to do and buy into, and you just look at the body language from that last game going into this game on the road, there's no way I'm not taking Mahomes to cover this thing. And anyone that's looking for an outright winner, you're going to get a ton of value on the Chiefs in this one in particular. Matt said it earlier in the show, the winner of this game likely is going to win the Super Bowl, and I'm fully on board with that take. I literally was trying to break down. I mentioned the logo briefly, but that theory's been getting tossed around a ton about the logo previewing the Super Bowl, and I think this is the marquee matchup out of the two, where the winner of this will go on to win this thing and hoist the Lombardi. With that being said, the opening total opened at 44.5. What I'm seeing on my end through ESPN Bet is 46.5 for total points. I think that hits pretty comfortably. The weather from everything I've seen isn't supposed to be too outrageous in terms of rain or wind or anything like that. It's going to be, the normal cold Maryland January. But other than that, man, I think this total hits.
I'm seeing rain all day in Baltimore, about 40 degrees.
Are you?
What I saw. Yep.
Dang, I need to
checked it twice this
look
week
at that
now.
forecast.
Yeah. Because I was thinking about that too, but yeah, that one's climbed a little bit as well. But props, there's some really good props going into this one, and especially this is the prime time to bet on Chiefs props, because they had a difficult season all year on offense, and now these guys are really firing on all cylinders, where they're kind of dropping these numbers in kind of low for these guys, where Pacheco's at 75 yards rushing. That's a no-brainer. He's going to get his touches. He's going to have an impact on this game. Some other guys for rushing. Lamar, 59. I mean, I'm not sure where he's even at for the season. That'd be interesting to look at. 59 for a quarterback seems crazy for me, but we're talking about Lamar Jackson. He's a stud, bro. So, but a couple other guys for rushing. Pat's sitting at 21, a little bit lower than the last couple weeks. Gus Edwards, 46, and Justice Hill sitting at 38. So kind of like that for both of those guys, Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, to hit those.
No, I like those props. I think with Pat's passing total, that one's very interesting to me at 229 yards for that. I'm taking the over in that. I think the passing game is something we rely heavily on. Like Marlon Humphrey's going to be a little bit hampered. They have Kyle Hamilton, obviously. They have Marcus Williams, so I think should be healthy for this one as well. But, and Geno Stone too. But those are all safeties. And so I think with everything Pat Mahomes can do with Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce over the middle, not to mention, we're going to run some screenplays with those guys in the backfield. I think 229 is very doable. I think for the Chiefs to win this game, he's probably got to throw 250 at least. So I'm on the side of the Chiefs coming out with a W, and so I'm going with the over on this one in particular. If I'm looking at Ravens totals, OBJ at 23 receiving yards, hitting the over on that feels like a gimme to me. Not a ton of receiving yards for him on the season, but he's really picked it up on the back half of the year. And with Mark Andrews coming off that injury, I could absolutely see them still relying on OBJ for a bulk of those kinds of touches. So I'm really riding with OBJ's over on that total. Best bets, man. There's going to be a lot of props that you can touch on this weekend. Throw some parlays together with the NFC Championship game and have yourself a day. Obviously, you're going to need to go over to Kansas to plug those bets in. But before we wrap up the show, I do want to talk about the game itself for the last couple minutes that we have. So if I'm looking at an X factor type of deal and how the Chiefs can win this game, I'm looking at the linebacking group. I'm looking at Willie Gay, how healthy he's going to be first, but also how well he's going to perform. He's going to have to track a lot of those guys in the running game. Willie Gay is going to be the spy on Lamar Jackson in a lot of those scenarios. In the supporting cast around him with Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquill and Leo Chenal, they're going to have to help track down those running backs as they hit those various gaps and make sure that no one busts any sweeps out on us. So being physical with that offense is going to be key, and I think it starts with that linebacking group and then moves out to the defensive backs. So if we keep up our physicality with Andrews off the line, him being injured a little bit, OBJ, Zay Flowers is a little guy, we can body him up on the line of scrimmage and really just make it difficult for them. And if we're doing our job out there in the corners, that's going to make protecting the run that much easier. So we just can't let them exploit us the way Buffalo did last week. And if they do get that jump off early, we just got to be able to adjust the way that we did in the second half of that game to make it to where they couldn't convert those runs on those short fourth downs and third down situations. So if I'm looking at an X factor and a key to victory for the Chiefs, that is the area that I'm highlighting, and it all is on the defensive side for me.
Beautiful. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm going with the other side of the ball. I'm going O-line, and it's important for me, just like you started yours with health, with Joe Thuney being questionable and really unlikely he's going to play. Allegretti's going to have to step up and fill that role. And we saw last week against Buffalo, he really stepped up and played well in that role. Still, it's Joe Thuney versus Allegretti. There's a different tier there as far as the left guard, and it's really going to start up front for these guys. The rush game, I think, is going to be hugely important for this for the Chiefs' success to be able to win this game. The running game has got to be there. But on top of that, this offense can't afford to be bogged down at any point. So the Ravens are going to score points. That's a high-powered offense they got in Baltimore. And so I don't want to say the Chiefs have to keep up, but the Chiefs do need to take care of every opportunity that they do have, and it's going to start with the O-line. And, as far as keys to victories, Lamar has to beat the secondary. We have to make Lamar beat us in the air. I'm not saying he's a bad passer, not saying he's not a quarterback, all that bullshit everybody's been talking. The man's good. But I want him he has to beat us through the air. We have to contain the pocket. We have to close the pocket in on him. And we got to make Lamar throw, 250, 275 with several touchdowns to beat us. I mean, that's where it starts for me. Outside of that, it's going to be pressure, sacks, QB hits. I want Lamar to be consistently pressured. I want him to consistently be uncomfortable to where he's got to throw that ball on the run, or he's got to throw it off his back foot, or wherever it may be. I want to make that pressure be felt. And then the biggest one for me really is special teams. We got to win special teams, whether it's Bucker going 100% on field goals and extra points, or it's Townsend dropping them in within the 5-yard line, or, and on top of that, field position. Field position is going to be huge. And we saw this last week where the Chiefs start with a short field. They're more successful, right? We've seen it all season where the Chiefs get stalled out after about 60 yards or so, and they end up kicking field goals. So, win that field position, get the short field pat in that offense, and then, that's a recipe for success, baby.
Love it. I love all of that. I think, you hit the nail on the head with Lamar Jackson and the game plan for him. You collapse that pocket on him, he's not going to have a ton of escapability, and that really takes away his greatest strength and what he does. Not saying he can't be dangerous deep, but I like our ability to limit those deep plays in the air compared to his ability to complete them. So I love that point. That's perfect. So, man, I'm ready for Sunday. Trey and I are going to be watching the game together at my brother-in-law Phil's house. We're going to have the whole tailgate crew and then some. So I'm ready to celebrate, ready to watch this team push for another appearance in the big game and bring the Lamar Hunt Trophy back to Kansas City for a second consecutive year. Everyone, wear some red today. Go out, get some barbecue, put all that positive Kansas City juju on all weekend long. Trey, do you have any advice for the people as they head into the AFC Championship game weekend?
No, I stay cool. It's the AFC Championship. We're not going to win every single play, so stay with the team, man. Don't get down on yourself. Don't drink and drive. Let's get after it.
Don't be Twitter raging either.
Yeah, well, that's what I do, so I can't blame everybody.
Hell yeah. We'll see you guys on Sunday. Peace.